Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Beth. Seek happiness. That's what a painting says on our wall at home that I look at every day. What is your happiness? For me, I've never been happier than I am right now. Being a part of this church has brought me so much joy and peace. When I'm sitting in this place, I feel the Spirit of the Lord inside me, making me vulnerable and open to feel the overwhelming love I have for God. I wish so much that my mother were alive today to see me grow spiritually and witness me participate in the ministries of this church. Sometimes, and especially when we sing certain hymns, I feel her presence next to me, squeezing my hand, only like a mother can. But finding happiness has been a journey for me and one that I'd like to share with you. I was born in Etowah, Tennessee. It's a small town of 3,000. My father was in real estate. My mother, in my younger years, was a homemaker. Later, she would go back to school and become a school teacher. My father, along with a few other businessmen, built our neighborhood where I grew up and a Presbyterian church across the street from my house. My mother was a choir director and my father was a deacon. And I was this little red-headed, freckled-faced child who was very precocious, skipping through life with no care in the world, surrounded by love. Unlike so many people I know today, my experience of going to church was wonderful. Daily, I was in and out of the church, watching my mother prepare for service on Sunday. Everything in life centered around church. Even in the summers, we would spend 2 months in Monterey, North Carolina, at a Presbyterian conference center. Some of my most fondest memories of my mother was watching her pull several churches together and direct a beautiful cantata at Christmas time. She was so amazing to watch. In the 60s, our town was still segregated. African Americans lived on one side of town and the whites lived on the other. This would really bother my mother. She would start ministries into their community, assist with building churches and organizing choirs. Every so often, my mother would ask me to go into my room and pick out several of my favorite toys and give away to some little girl in need. I would ask her, why? Why do I have to give my toys away? She would always come back and say, don't you want some little girl to have the same joy that you have? I am so grateful today for those teachings. My mother's unconditional love to the African American community came with consequences. My mother was shunned by many women's organizations, kicked out, if you will, because of her work and her conviction. The same people that were preaching love in the church showed through their own actions a different message. As I got older, my awareness to my surroundings became clear. One day, I don't know when, I guess it was in my early teens, I noticed I wasn't so happy, and the little girl who loved life so much started feeling different and not good enough. I also noticed that my loving parents who went to church every Sunday no longer went. My mother was no longer doing ministries, and her internal light seemed to be dull. You see, my parents, they had found alcohol. As a young girl, I felt alone, silent by my parents' addiction. They were no longer taking care of me, but instead I was taking care of them. Though my mother would continue to work, my father could no longer hold a job. However, from an outsider looking in, we looked perfect. We lived in a beautiful home. We had 2 cars in the driveway, and my family was respected by the community. But my brother and I would have to keep a secret about what was going on in our home. What a burden for us to carry. Though my mother would find her way back to God and become a missionary, alcoholism would finally kill her on November 1998, and my father lost his life to the disease when he was only 62. My brother was disgusted by my parents' disease and swore off alcohol. He would leave the home early in his life, never to return, and had limited visits with my parents. But for me, I would open the door of addiction and alcoholism. From the first time I took a drink, I fell in love. The feeling of not fitting in went away. I felt like I could do anything when I was high. Alcohol made me feel beautiful and funny and in control of my life. I would have many consequences from drinking, from being kicked out of boarding school because I ran away, to a DUI and getting arrested. But nothing, I mean nothing, would stop me from picking up the bottle the next day. I would pray to God and say, God, if you will get me out of this mess, I swear I will never, ever pick up a drug or a drink again. I would fall short to that promise every time. It was like being on a roller coaster that I couldn't get off of. One minute I was flying high, and the next minute I was hitting the bottom. I carried so much shame that at times I felt like I couldn't even hold my head up. I went through a period where I cut my arms with a razor blade just to feel something. The only time I saw my father cry was after I tried to kill myself and a minister brought me home from the hospital. My father pulled back the sleeves of my arm, and in both arms he saw deep cuts up and down my arm. My father, he bent his head in disbelief and began to weep like a baby. He said, "How did this happen?" I would try everything over the course of my life to quit drinking. I would switch from whiskey to beer, drink out of a smaller glass, drink only after 5 p.m., count my drinks, and even move cross-country. But no matter what I tried or where I moved, I couldn't stop drinking. However, I did learn one gift from my parents, the gift of disguise. I would maintain a job, be respected by peers, and have many friends, but I would hide my drinking so no one would know how bad it was. Maybe in my 20s or even my 30s, I had fun times going out with friends to the clubs, staying up all night, drinking, but I definitely wasn't having fun at the end. I would drink every day from the age of 13 to the age of 40. Everything that I had loved or I had loved about myself was gone. I was only a shadow of myself, waiting to die. One night, I prayed to God to help me. I fell to my knees, crying and screaming, "Help me, God, please!" By the grace of God, I found myself in treatment, and soon after in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. God surrounded me with women who would teach me how to become whole again and would educate me on the 12-step program. I would learn how to be a sober woman, find a God of my understanding, and learn to live in the solution. Today I have 17 years clean and sober. I would find my wife in the rooms of AA, and we would embark on a spiritual journey together. Our life has been so incredible, trying new things and visiting new places. It seemed like we needed nothing else in our lives to make it complete. But about 2 years ago, we both agreed that we needed a deeper understanding of Jesus' teaching and God's love. So when we were ready, we came back to MC of the Palm Beaches, where we were welcomed with open arms and shown so much love. So my story ends where my childhood started, in the church, surrounded by people who loved me. I started off by saying, "Seek happiness." And I can honestly say, through all that I have gone through, that today I have found complete happiness.